Welcome to the Mason Dukacek Show, where we explore real-world business strategies with top experts to help business owners, CEOs, and managers stay ahead of the competition. Today's guest is none other than Shep Hyken, best-selling author, Hall of Fame speaker, and one of the world's top customer service and customer experience authorities. Shep has worked with some of the most admired brands on the planet, Disney, FedEx, and countless others, helping them master the art of customer experience and loyalty. In his books, including Moments of Magic, The Amazement Revolution, The Convenience Revolution, and I'll Be Back, these books have been game changers for companies looking to turn satisfied customers into lifelong fans. Shep has spent decades studying what makes customers stay and what drives them away. He's seen brilliant strategies, catastrophic failures, and everything in between. And today, he's here to share fresh insights, powerful stories, and actionable strategies that you can apply immediately. Shep, welcome to the show.
It is great to be here. It is great to see you. I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I always look forward to our conversations. So let's dive into it. Lots of companies believe that they're delivering great service, but their customers disagree, or worse, they leave without warning. What's the biggest disconnect you've seen between companies that think they're doing well and what customers actually experience?
So the disconnect is they do think they're doing well, and they don't realize what the customer is experiencing. And so there's a couple of things we want to think about here. Number one, your customer doesn't compare you to direct competition anymore. They compare you to the best service experience they've received from any company or any brand, and that's their benchmark. So when you don't hit it, there's a question mark in their mind whether they want to do business with you again, and they're willing to try someone else to see if they'll get a better experience. So that's number one. Number two, realize that if all you are is satisfying your customers, you're at a great risk. We do annual research every year, and this year, I'm going to make sure I give you the right number, 27%. This is 27% of U.S. consumers will, if they rate you as on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is bad and 5 is amazing and 3 is average or satisfactory, get this, they are not likely, 19% of them, or never 8%, that adds up to 27%, ever coming back, even if you satisfy them, because the experience was just fine. Fine doesn't mean they're going to complain. Fine, if you make it an acronym, F stands for fake smile. How's everything? It's fine.
Oh, sure.
I is insincere feedback, even though they're just not insincere, like outright lying. It's not worth telling you about. It could be better. N is not coming back. And E is it's emotionless, because if all you do is give it to me as an average experience, just okay, I'm not emotionally connected to you. I use the word fine and represent it as the F-bomb of customer experience. Do not ever get caught being described as just fine. Now, one thought before we move on to your next question is that executives, managers, and other stakeholders who are in charge of making sure your reputation is intact, at least for good service, should take the time to experience what customers are saying by spending time on the front line, listening to customers, or even taking phone calls from customers in the customer support world to see what they're saying. And why not mystery shop your own business? And by the way, don't call during off times, call during peak times and find out what customers are experiencing in the toughest time. Real quick story. There was a gentleman over at Microsoft who, his name was Bill, who answered phone calls. His name was Bill Gates. He actually would spend time every month or so going down and taking care of support calls to hear exactly what the customers were saying about his company.
I love that advice, and it's very relevant and very true. I've literally just ended a banking relationship that I've had since I was 11 years old. I moved 2 of my commercial accounts. And when I went to the new bank, the first question they asked me was, what's most important to you in your banking relationship? And I said, I left my last bank because it was hard work being a customer. And
Customer Effort Score, CES, is a good metric. How hard is it for a customer to connect with a real person, to get a question answered, or to do any of the normal, and I'll use the word transaction, although I don't love the word transaction. I refer to it more as an interaction, making it feel like there's more to it than just that moment. But how hard is it to do in banking? To make the deposit, to get the deposit, to stand in line on during lunch when you might have, that's the only time you can get to the bank, that kind of thing.
There was an error, and I went to the bank. I made a special trip to go talk to a live person at the bank. We'll see what we can do. We can't make a decision here. We'll see what we can do. And that was on a Thursday afternoon. I did not hear from them the rest of the day Thursday. I did not hear from them on Friday. I gave them up until an hour and a half before closing on Monday, and I called them yeah, we've been really busy. We haven't gotten to that yet, but we'll make it a priority. I'll try to get to it tonight. And you know what happened next? Nothing. I had to wait a couple days. And at that point in time, I called them again because they didn't follow up with me. And I'm like, you're making it hard work to be a customer. And they're like, well, you have to go do this or you have to go do that. And when
You don't have to do anything but choose where you want to do business. So let me share a thought. Well, this is what we do in our trainings and when I talk about it, when I do a speech. 5 steps. You acknowledge the problem. When you come to that bank with that problem, it should be acknowledged and apologized for, whatever it was. And by the way, you can flip the order. 1 and 2, 2 and 1, doesn't matter. Those are your first 2 steps. Acknowledge, apologize. Number 3, this is what we need to do to get it fixed. It may not be my fault. It may not even be something that I'm capable of doing, but I know who to go to get the information to come back to you and tell you what we're going to do. Number 4, again, not my fault, but now it's my responsibility. I'm going to be accountable to you as the person you came to make sure you're taken care of. Even if I hand you off to someone else, I'm going to make sure you have my number in case you have further problems. Number 5, here's the important part. It's urgency. How quickly can I get this taken care of? And what I would suggest is during that step 3, which is discussing what the resolution is going to be to get it fixed, if I have to call you back tomorrow, I commit to calling you tomorrow and I do it. So I say, you will hear from me by the end of day tomorrow. And I call you at noon and you think, wow, that was quick.
It was funny because I even went to another branch in another city to close my account. They didn't even ask why, what can we do?
Isn't that a shame?
I mean, I've banked with them since I was 11 years old. Personal accounts, but business accounts not that long, obviously. But I moved a lot of deposits out, and they didn't even bother to ask. And I really don't even think they cared, honestly. And
isn't that a shame? Yeah. And you know what? Unfortunately, there are a lot of companies that happens. They know they're going to churn customers, and if I'm a smart manager or a leader, I want to know why we're churning customers. Why are they leaving? Because we need to avoid this.
That's the interesting thing. The bank that I switched to is they asked that question. Well, they knew what bank I left and they knew why I left. And if they see that as a trend, then that they could obviously tailor their marketing campaigns and things like that to appeal to those customers who were dissatisfied. I don't know if you remember this, but we're probably talking 20 years ago, but I remember when we used to have to pay for long distance. Southwestern Bell Telephone.
I remember that.
And it was the experience that I recall back then was brutal because you felt that you were held hostage. There was nowhere else you could go because they were the only provider at the time. And then there was this company that came along, and I don't know how it worked, but they were called Birch Telecom. And I remember them having a billboard right down on Manchester Road, right down the street from my office, that had a picture of a dog and a fire hydrant. And basically, it literally just said, we're the alternative to Southwestern Bell Telephone. And it captured the anger that people felt towards the customer torture department that existed back then.
Customer torture, sales prevention.
Oh, yeah.
I've got some fun stats here. Let me, I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. Are you ready for this? When it comes to calling customer support in general, and we ask these questions because we know they're fun, but we like to just see what kind of answers we're going to get.
Sure.
1 in 3 customers, actually 34%, would rather go to the dentist than call customer support. Ooh, that hurts. So there's another one
out there, Shep.
Yeah. 76% of customers have said they have yelled agent or representative into an automated system before hanging up. And 63% have stopped doing business with a company or brand due to the inability to reach customer support. Companies need to recognize that and by the way, companies are, we're going digital. We're going all, text, chat, whatever you want to call it. Customers are fine with that for the most part if you offer that as a first option, but realize if you can't get there, you got to talk to a real person. Even if it's via chat, I'm okay with that as long as it switches from automated AI, fueled customer support to dealing with a human that might be able to make a decision that the AI bot is not able to do for you. So we got to keep so I mentioned calling. How about this? 39%. That's basically 4 in 10 customers would rather clean a toilet than call customer support.
I'm not surprised that those numbers are congruent with my learned.
It's not always that way. I don't want to be doom and gloom because there are so many companies that do it right. By the way, here's the perception. There are more companies doing it right more than ever before. We look at another survey that's done pretty much throughout the year and tens of thousands of companies and responses, not companies, but responses toward companies from customers. It's called the ACSI, the American Customer Satisfaction Index, that comes out of the University of Michigan. And they're looking at all these brands and they're finding there's a trend going up because here's what's happening. Companies are starting to realize they need to get on the bandwagon to do this right. They may be a little late to getting there. Also, as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, customers look at outside of our industry to compare us, to what great service looks like. So as we step up and start to implement better service standards, better service procedures, maybe even better technology, we're starting to catch up. So our experience for a customer, us directly to them, is improving, even if it's not meeting the total need. But overall, I think companies are recognizing if they don't do it, two things are going to happen. Their customers are going to leave, okay? And then they're going to be saying, like when it comes to technology and processes and focusing on customer support, if they're late to the party, they need to be catching up in two areas. Number one, as I mentioned, customers leave. Now you're losing market share. And that's hard. And then you need to catch up with what is necessary to get that customer to stay with you. So realize it's a tough thing if you start to get behind, because you're going to be chasing after the customers that left and trying to recapture customers to replace those customers. That's a tough job. Now you're moving from customer service, which keeps your customers, to sales, which brings them in. And every stat that you look at, every study that you see since the 1980s, when the Technical Assistant Research Program, which was commissioned by the White House Office of Consumer Affairs, they all say it is more expensive to get new customers than to keep the ones you have. Boom.
I get it. So I know that many business leaders struggle with the frontline employees who just go through the motions. What's a creative or unexpected strategy that you've seen that made employees genuinely engage in delivering better service?
So by the way, it's not so much that I see companies doing it or not doing it. I'm going to tell you what we do when we teach our clients this, and it works really, really well. And that is to create what I refer to as service awareness. So what we try to do is create with our clients, we create a set of standards, non-negotiable behaviors, if you will. The Ritz-Carlton calls them their gold standards and by the way, they have a lot of them. They have, I think it's 24 gold standards. That's a lot of things to think about and remember. How they go about training them is brilliant, by the way. We can talk about that later if you want. Whether it's 5, we just talked to a client today that said, this is what we want to work on. We want to work on exactly how to greet the customer when they walk through the door and how we exit them out the door at the end of that interaction that they have with us. Those are 2 of several non-negotiable behaviors that have to take place. So here's what we do. We say, here they are. This week, we're going to focus on the proper greeting. And in between now and the next time we meet, a week from now, I want you to just write down on an index card 2 or 3 sentences about a time that you created this proper greeting and you got a great response from your customer. And hand this in to your manager, and then the manager has a meeting and they share some of these in a group meeting. And what's happening is when you ask people to do this, they may wait until the meeting starts before they turn in their card thinking, okay, when in the last week was I nice to somebody or whatever it was I'm supposed to do? And they have a little brain pain. But by the second or third week that they're required to do this, they catch themselves doing it in the moment and say, I'm going to write this one down. Here's my example. And that's what service awareness is all about. Knowing in the moment, me personally know that I am delivering this level of service. And that's key, service awareness. Now, once we get these examples from our employees, we want to take, by the way, it's not a contest, but we want to take the best of the best and we want to compile them into a best practice manual. So now we're going to share with other employees how we want them to behave, act, respond, whatever in certain situations. And we're not telling them because we think it's right. We're telling them because their colleagues, their fellow employees did something proving it was right. So we're creating this best practice manual from personal experiences of our own people, our own team members, that it just makes it such a more palatable experience when we try to train people on what is the right thing to do.
Shep, the bank that I went to may have been one of your customers because...
the one that you went to. Okay,
one
good.
that went to because literally now that you're describing the service awareness, I literally just got done telling the banker that my previous banking experience, it was hard work to be a customer. And they were always telling me, you have to go to our website. You have to do this. You have to do that. And it wasn't just one of them. It was multiple employees throughout, and it was cringeworthy. And after hearing me say that, when she started presenting their alternative, she's like, so that you don't have to, so that you don't have to, so that you don't have to. Here are some options and different ways that you can accomplish this, which would be your preference. And now all of a sudden, I've got a a teammate, someone working with me, guiding me through the process, versus someone who's telling me that I have to be an unpaid employee of the bank to get my own stuff done.
I think that's a brilliant strategy. I actually wrote down those words, so that you don't have to, is an amazing thing. Now, we work with clients and they're trying to move to more of a digital platform. The key to doing it right is to get your customers to want to do it, to adopt to it. So let's use my favorite example, which is the airlines. Mason, when's the last time you picked up the phone to call and make a reservation for a trip that you're taking?
I can't even remember how long.
Exactly. I'm glad that is the correct answer. Thanks for playing the game. But seriously, go back to when they first started with the online reservations and the online check-in. They said, we want you to try this. So here's what we're willing to do. First of all, they created a platform, a system that they felt was easy and intuitive for the average person to be able to go on and understand the flow of booking a reservation and seeing what the options are for flights. And they said, if you try this, we're going to give you a $500 point bonus on your frequent flyer program or something to that effect. And you know what? For 500 points, I'm going to try this. Wow, this was easy. So when I first wrote about this a way long time ago, I'm not going to use the name of the company, but the airline name is Delta Airlines, or initials. So, what did I just do? No, Delta Airlines. So here's what happened. My friend says, I just had the best experience on Delta. Really? Tell me about it. I got all the way to the gate where I got on the airplane and I didn't have to talk to any employees. And I said, are the employees that bad? He goes, oh no, the employees are great. They're fantastic. But they created this system where I go online and I book my ticket. And when I go to check in, I could get my boarding pass before I even get to the airport. And the only time I ever need to deal with them is if there's a problem. And there wasn't a problem. I got all the way to the plane. And then somebody from Delta said, welcome. And I thought, well, that's exactly what they're trying to achieve. And they were very successful. So when you look at it that way, great. So I have a friend of mine, his name's Lance Gruner, great guy, super well known in the customer experience space, high-level executive for a major company, worldwide customer support and experience. And he walked into a company's office store to get something done, and there was nobody else in the store, and the employee said, you see that kiosk over there? You can do it yourself. And that's all the employee said. Wow. Well, so he went over there and he struggled. He'd never done it before. That employee should have walked him over and said, you know, I'm going to show you how to do this. So the next time you come in here, if there's a long line, you can do it yourself. And an employee could take a moment to teach Lance how to use this system and then never, ever have to worry about it again. And that's how you help people adopt and adapt. You don't tell them, well, you need to do this. You say, let me show you how to do it. Or if it's something that you want to give them the option, to your point, the words, so you don't have to.
That was huge to me. And it's funny because we talked a little bit about customer retention and new account acquisition. And it was a painful experience with the bank, being a customer of the bank that I left. And they took me for granted. They didn't bother to return my calls. And it made me happy to withdraw the funds and take it to another bank. The other thing that the other bank did, which caught my attention, was you talk about how long things take. So if I'm a customer and I feel like my time's being wasted, this is taking me too long. It's pain being a customer.
That's called
your
friction.
process is taking me too long. You mentioned that there was a book I saw years ago, and I bought it and I didn't finish reading it yet, but it was The Best Customer Service is No Customer Service. In other words, create a system that's so efficient, just like you were describing, that
Was
there's no reason for
was that Bill Price by chance?
It might have been.
Yeah. So Bill Price got the job as the very first senior VP worldwide customer service at Amazon when he met with Jeff Bezos. And by the way, it was back in the day when, I don't know if maybe all they did was sell books, because Jeff said, why don't we go across the street and have a cup of coffee at the coffee shop while we do this interview, which I don't think would happen.
Probably not.
Well, even though Jeff's retired. He says, what's your definition of great service? And he said, no service. We should be so good that customers don't need to call us for anything we do wrong. However, at the time, they didn't manage their own delivery. When that product leaves the warehouse and it's put into the hands of FedEx, UPS, USPS, DHL, or any of the other carriers, if they make a mistake, the customer doesn't know who made the mistake. They just know they bought it from Amazon. And Amazon's the kind of company that would say, we don't care if they made the mistake. We're going to take care of you. It's our job, since you're our customer. Talk about ownership, responsibility. The other day, Amazon, lost my package. They said it was delivered, but I live in a building where you scan and everything scanned in, and it wasn't scanned in, even though it said it was delivered. I went on and their chat that I did with them, I didn't even talk to a human. They just asked questions like, what's the order number? I copy and pasted the order number in. What's the problem? I typed it out. They asked a simple question at that point. Do you want a refund or do you want us to send it out again?
Easy enough.
I'll take either one of those. Well, I said I would really like my books. It was actually 2 books that I ordered. Send it out again. And guess what? They showed up yesterday. Boom. It works.
Well, you know what, Shep? Like I want to piggyback on, because this is so relevant, because this happened to me within the last 7 days. But you talked about how the airlines compensated you to learn their new system. They acknowledged the value of your time and said, hey, we'll compensate you in the form of these bonus points if you're going to take your time to learn this thing. So now you're motivated to get through it, but I feel like the company that I'm doing business with respects the value of my time because they're paying for it. And
So
the bank, the bank that I moved 2 accounts offered me $500 per account to move. And all I have to do is 5 transactions with each one of them in the 90-day period, which I'm going to do anyway. That's not a big deal. So they just basically want to make sure that I'm going to give them a fair shot. So they are compensating. And guess what? I didn't mind. I spent over an hour and a half moving those bank accounts, but I didn't mind spending that time because they're compensating me for my time and my effort. And you know what? I will give them referrals and they will get more folks because of the culture there was night and day different than the bank that I left.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking for a stat or a finding that tied into this, but there's about 150 of them. I can't get right to it. But what your experience is, they want to compensate you for your time. There is a stat that a good percentage of customers feel that many companies, especially when they call for support and they need help, don't respect their time. I just wrote an article, your call is not very important to us. If it was so important, you would answer it quickly, efficiently, and get me what I need. But obviously, making me stay on hold, I called it the farce. And I didn't realize you can farce somebody. It's a verb. And, I avoid may the farce be with you. No, that's not what you want. And then, I call these, also they're myths. Your call is very important is a myth in some cases, not all cases. Sure. So don't make the mistake.
That's hilarious.
Making a promise to a customer that you cannot keep, because then the service promise is simply that, a myth.
If a CEO or a business owner or manager could only ask one question to assess whether their company is delivering an amazing customer experience, what should that question be?
One question is very hard, but I'll tell you, I would look at the churn rate. So what's my churn? What percentage of customers are walking out the door? Okay. That's going to tell me a number that's really important. We need to lower that number, obviously. So when you tell me, I love using NPS, Net Promoter Score, one of my favorite measurements, which in case you don't know it, most people do, but just in case, it's a question. On a scale of 0 to 10, what is the likelihood that you would recommend us? Now, that single question, if you get a 9 or a 10, you have a promoter. A 7 or 8, they're passive. In other words, they're that satisfied customer. You don't know which direction they're leaning toward, leaving or staying. And then anything less is a detractor. Most companies, unfortunately, focus on detractors, okay? They're the ones that you're going to leave. Yeah, you want to eliminate, you want to try to fix it. So you might ask, and if you're doing a simple survey, whether it be on the phone or even an automated survey that's sent digitally, the second question should change based on the answer the customer gives you. So on a scale of 0 to 10, if you give me a 10, I might ask, why did you give that to me? And it's an open-ended question. Or this question, if I gave you a 5, what would it take for you to give us a 6 or a 7 or get a better score? And that's different than what went wrong. I want to know what would make you happy. So the companies that are using the Net Promoter Score system to determine what they could do better or what they could fix that's worse is looking at ways to eliminate churn. So when we are working with clients and helping them design surveys, we tell them, look, make it easy. 3 questions. 2 quantitative, meaning a 0 to 10 or a 1 to 10 or a 1 to 5, such as, how would you rate the experience overall? How would you rate the person you dealt with? That's a second question. And a third question could be an open-ended question based on one of those 2 responses that automates to the third, whatever that question is based on those answers. And I love my one thing question. Is there one thing you can think of that would make the experience better? You ask your happy customers that, And if enough of them tell you the same one thing and you're not doing it, well, you now have a chance to improve on greatness.
Yep, I appreciate you. And I feel like we could talk about this stuff all day. And
We can.
Just okay with you. I will would like to have you on in future episodes as well. So we can kind of pick up because I'm just so engrossed in the things you're talking about because they are relevant. And this is real time. This is stuff the businesses are dealing with right now. If people want to engage with you and learn about your books or your presentations or your consulting in-house, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
It's just go to my website, hyken.com, Hyken. Couple of things. Number one, the research is free. Click on the research tab. You don't even need to put in your email address. I want you to have it, whether you like me or not, whether you ever want me to contact you or not. And if you do want to fill out the form to get our newsletter, you get a weekly newsletter, a funny cartoon. I don't know what made me start doing this, but I do a weekly cartoon. I draw it up. I have somebody help me colorize it, make it pretty, but it's fun. It'll make you smile. Plus, there's always a good article that ties into whatever the cartoon's about. We have clients that print these out and they use them in their weekly meetings or monthly meetings and share them with everybody. We want you to do that. So, and of course, you could always book me to come and speak or hire one of my trainers to come and do a workshop for you. So thank you for having me on the show, Mason. Love seeing you again. You and I have known each other for decades.
It has been decades. I remember when you came out with Moments of Magic was your first book. Am I correct?
Yep. Back in the late 1980s. John Hauser introduced us.
Yes, he did.
And we have mutual friends. And I'm so good we've maintained the friendship. I knew you when you had a lot of hair.
That's been a long time, Shep. So decades, as you say. Anyhow, well, hey, I really appreciate you. And hopefully we can get together and visit soon. And I hope that the folks listening to the audience get to take away as many practical ideas as I did today. So thanks for your time, Shep.
Thank you.